Jetzt geht's weiter mit, wie gesagt, einem englischsprachigen Panel, Reflections on Survivor Engagement, Connecting Artistic, Community-Driven and Human Rights Perspectives. Das Ganze wird moderiert und ist auch konzipiert durch Maria Książak. Maria ist Psychologin, spezialisiert auf Trauma- und Kriseninterventionstherapie und forensische Psychologie. Sie koordiniert bei Xenion das Projekt Crossing to Safety und war unter anderem psychologische Expertin des Nationalen Mechanismus zur Verhütung von Folter in Polen. Das Panel befasst sich mit der Frage, wie wir Überlebenden von Folter und schwerer kollektiver Gewalt nicht nur in der therapeutischen Versorgung gerecht werden können, sondern wie sie mit ihrem Erlebten und auch ihrem Schmerz in der Öffentlichkeit sichtbar und hörbar werden können. Maria ist Aktivistin und steht aktuell selbst vor Gericht wegen ihres Aktivismus an der Grenze. Sie hat es während des laufenden Prozesses ermöglicht, dass Betroffene und Überlebende heute hier unmittelbar eingebunden werden konnten. Das ist nämlich das Panel, das euch jetzt erwartet. Dafür sind wir sehr dankbar und ich möchte an Maria übergeben. Danke.
Hello. So before we start, I want to introduce a little bit why we are here together on one stage with such various people from Poland. And I guess why we are here together is because the border issue and the issue of traumatized migrants at the border are much bigger issue to handle just by a psychologist that is working in the four walls of a room with trauma. And this need has joined us together with people of various professions and backgrounds. And so today we are here together to talk about the border situation in Poland in the context of what can we do. We don't want to base our attention only on the very negative context of trauma, but we want to see in the common pool of our resources how we can deal with transforming this situation to something that may mean survival for our traumatized clients. So we have here with us Mr. Karol Cichocki, who is a journalist, and not only a journalist coming from the US, born in New York, but his parents are coming from the border area of Poland, but he also responded as a journalist, but became an activist and spent 7 months on the border of Poland and Belarus, rescuing people on the move. And before I introduce our colleagues from Academy of Fine Arts, I would like to ask to the stage our dear colleague Ursula Wolfram, come please, who is not in the panel with us, but from the 2021 she is on the border rescuing people every day, and not as a professional psychologist and a doctor, but as an artist who is born in this area and couldn't stand to see people being brought back. So as other people who were artists, journalists, she went through a course on first aid and rescue and is one of the rescuers, but also connects with our project of Museum of Migration and Trauma on the Move, of which we presented this photography and artwork, and she is a dear colleague who is supporting refugees in the forest usually. And Xawery Deskur and Kacper Dziedzic are our friends from Warsaw Fine Art Academy. There is a studio of Professor Krzysztof Wodiczko, who is actually a Harvard professor who for years is concerned with the work of social exclusion and try through the art bring inclusion into the matters of social life, and also he devotes his work to refugees. Did I say something right about Professor Wodiczko? He's a very dear person, and as IHI we cooperate with Professor Wodiczko and with the Media Art Department of Public Domain in Warsaw Academy of Arts for many years. And since last year, we have this project of Museum of Migration and Trauma on the Move that we developed together with Xawery, Kacper, and with refugees who are rescued from this border trauma and from detention trauma in Warsaw. Poland is a country of Europe which has the longest land border of Europe. And part of this border is a border of EU and Ukraine. This is a part of the border which is amazingly opened. What happened since the war in Ukraine was actually amazing, because the Polish nation, and I would say Polish citizens, much more than the Polish government, had given everything they could to help the people who was pouring into our borders from Ukraine through the very long land border which we have with Ukraine. But in the same time, in the northern part of our border, EU border with Belarus, it's like a day and night. This is where we had one of the toughest traumatic experiences and border regime that don't want to let even most vulnerable people on the territory of European Union. And this is the schizophrenia, this is the total difficulty that we as people who are somewhat sensitive to the needs of refugees have to live in for many years now in Poland. So now we are going not to talk about Ukraine, with all respect to our dear colleagues from Ukraine that are here, which we really love, and we think that the war in Ukraine is a very important factor, but we want to switch to this more difficult context of the border of Poland with Belarus. And I want to start with Karol. And this is a conference where we have a lot of psychologists, doctors, social workers, human rights people. But I want to start from a deep question. You are a journalist, and you came there. What happened that you stayed there for 7 months in this forest? What happened in you? What internal border did you cross to get from being a journalist, well set in New York?
Well, first of all, thank you for having us and having the opportunity to speak. This is a very deep and loaded question, and just to give you a context, yes, I was born in the United States, but I grew up in Eastern Poland. So there are a couple of levels of my motivation and the reasons that I showed up there is that obviously I grew up there and I know these border areas very well. I used to be a young scout and I used to walk these forests of the Primeval Białowieża forest as a young scout. So I have very fond memories of, being for the first time in love and being on, different walks through the forest. And so it always had a very important place in my heart. And at the same time, I am a person who's from in between the worlds, because I am partially someone who has a background in American culture. I am someone who's raised with the Polish culture. So when I realized, and I was at the time already living back in Brooklyn in the United States, that what was happening, and I realized what was happening on the ground in my own backyard, my motivation as a journalist in the beginning was to obviously go and document and to see the process. But when I got there and I realized that there are no big NGOs working on the ground, that some of the people that are actually involved in delivering the aid are some of the people that I've met years ago, 20 years ago. It shifted the way I thought about it, and I realized that there is something that I have to do. And the obvious decision was that, that I have to sacrifice part of my life and just to be there in this forest. And also comes from a moral motivation, as I strongly stand from the position that I think that everyone should have a right to live wherever they want. And when I saw this systemic oppression at the border, it was a moment where I realized there is no coming back from my involvement. And also at the same time, I don't believe in journalistic objectivity, and I still think that you can apply your rigorous values when you cover issues like this, all the humanitarian crises around the world. And so I don't think there is something bad about being a journalist and the activist at the same time, and I think that the times are actually demanding us to be more and more involved, because we see how there is more and more systemic oppression around the world, and there's just we have to do something, and there is no more way of just covering whatever it means objectively the news. So that's why I made this decision.
Thank you. And since you are coming from US, you were born there, but your mother comes from the Białystok?
Well, yeah, she lives an hour drive from the border.
Yes,
yeah.
And you know these territories as well, very well. I would like to ask you a question which would be to you, but also maybe to you as an activist this time, not as a journalist, as a person who is not professionally prepared for seeing such trauma, for seeing dead people, for going to the forest and not knowing whether you will find someone who is alive or someone who is no longer alive, because you also discovered some people who were dead, and Ursula discovered so many people who died. We had over 60 people that were dead found in this forest, and finding them was not done by our military or border guard, but mostly it was in the time of the rescue missions that you find someone who didn't survive. How do you deal with such trauma, and how do you feel that the people who are forced to be local citizens on the border may deal with such difficult situations, such hopelessness?
Yeah, this is a very good and difficult question. I mean, especially speaking to the room, which is also full of people that are dealing with trauma. So it's a little bit nervous for me to answer this question, but yes, I was never prepared for this, and to be fully honest, I was really afraid in the beginning. And I remember when I was for the first time stopped by the border guards, when they were carrying their, machine guns, and the faces were covered. They didn't introduce themselves. They were pretty hostile towards me. And so I was terrified. I was really terrified. I remember I was shaking, I think, for 2 days and trying to process what actually happened. And, trying to figure out the situation, that what I actually was trying to do at this day was to deliver clothes to the people who were cold in the forest and were soaking wet. And I kind of felt at the same time that I was doing something wrong and something good, and I couldn't process it, why I have this difficult feelings inside me. But, after the time, I just simply got used to it. And we even often now laugh with Ula. Before we actually started this panel today, we were actually joking that whenever there is some new person that we take into the forest, whether it's a new volunteer, an activist, or a journalist that wants to join us, they usually tell us that, oh, you have no fear approaching a military with the machine guns when they're stopping you in the forest. Oh, you're not afraid anymore. And then we are like, oh yes, we're not anymore. So, which also is, I don't know, it's when I think about it, it really sounds crazy to me. But yes, it is our reality that we have to often argue with them because they're telling us we're not allowed to get into the forest when we know we are allowed to get into the forest to deliver the aid. And they play a lot of psychological games with us, but we got better in playing those games. And because of this, we are effective. And of course, I was never prepared, as you've asked about the dead people that we unfortunately found. And most of the dead people that we found is that we had some contact from the members of the families of the people who were lost somewhere in the border. And we had to figure out with Ula, with our friends at the POPH, which is the Podlaskie Voluntary Humanitarian Rescue Service, that we run together with Ula. And we had to investigate on which side of the border to get the testimonies of different people, the witnesses. And of course, we report this to the Polish authorities, especially to the police, because we often, I don't know if we hope anymore, that they will do something to find those people. But it's often us who are doing also the work of finding those people. And fortunately and unfortunately at the same time, we are often very effective in finding those people. And sometimes, as I remember, it was almost exactly a year ago, I went with my friend Eliza and Mariusz, who is also a very dedicated volunteer and activist who just this week has helped in one single day more than 50 people in one day, just during the day. And he dragged some of those people by his hands out of the forest because they were not able to walk. And last year we just went for like a regular, walk around the forest, and we encountered a body, which turned out to be a 44-year-old man from Afghanistan. And it was a traumatic sight because he was naked on the ground. And of course, in this situation, we had to report the authorities and report the whole situation. And then I've learned from the prosecutor that arrived at the scene that he died from hypothermia. So what is even more traumatizing to me as someone who has witnessed it and is realizing the fact that I saw someone who was suffering in his final moments. And so, I'm still not really sure that we are dealing with this. I am not definitely dealing with this because we are still on the adrenaline of doing this every week, almost every single day, thinking about it. Even then when I'm back in New York, I'm on my phone on all these signal groups that we have, trying to figure out the cases, who's lost, who's in the forest, who's in the action, do we have the volunteers, do we have the clothes, do we have the food? It's a 24-hour thing that we do. But in terms of but surprisingly, this was not the most traumatic thing. The most traumatic thing is what we went through, seeing the children on the other side and talking to them, and being not able to give them water, food, and being put in a position when you're trying to give them the hope, when you're not, you don't know if there is any opportunity that we could actually help them in this situation, is one of the worst things that I think I've experienced in my life so far, and it just happened this month. So I think we are far, far, far from even starting to psychologically deal with this situation.
Yes, I was there. So actually this was the time when I remember we spoke with Anne in Xenion, because I work also in Xenion, of course. And it's due to Xenion work that some years ago we started a project, Crossing to Safety, with the funding of United Nations Voluntary Fund for Victims of Torture. And part of this project is what you see. Part of this project is responding also to needs in Poland, because it's a cross-border project. And Crossing to Safety, the meaning of this is that those people, they don't come here for social reasons, just for some money to lay down and to not work and to be a burden on Europeans. They come for safety, because in the country of origins, they don't have basic human right they don't have safety, they have been tortured, they have been violated. And we, of course, know they are victims, but they are the secondary victims of this border. And what comes after, it's also the next chapter. Because till now, most of the people who crossed finally this border didn't have a chance to be there with psychologists to process. They went straight to prison for many years, sometimes for a couple of years or months, regardless if they are children, if they are traumatized women, if they are pregnant women, if they are unaccompanied minors, even. So there is a trauma of what they went through in the country of origin, coupled with the border trauma, coupled with detention trauma. And all of it we try to deal with for some years in Xenion, because finally when they feel insecure on the border and insecure in the so-called first safe country, which is not safe in fact, they keep going and they go to Berlin.
Can I just jump? And it's important to add in this point is that yes, they are coming to the first country where they should feel safe, but what they are met with is often the violence of the Polish authorities there at this border in this forest. Often they're being pepper sprayed. Some of them get beaten. And those are the testimonies we also collect when we are delivering the aid. And they're very overwhelming. And there are a lot of cases of the violence that is being used. So this is their first experience of the so-called safety.
So then, when this project is continuing, I remember some time ago I went to Anna and I just cried. I said, I can't handle the situation of kids there. This is where my border is. So, now to the bright side of things. What can we do? So we cannot give up because we have no privilege to give up. Because what happens when we give up with them? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Because we are on the other side of this fence and they count on us. So what we tried to do this May, we went to the government. We wrote a letter. This is a petition, open letter, I will show you later, of the doctors and psychologists of our foundation and people connected with our foundation. We tried to go, I went to a parliamentary session, spoke with the minister, with the border generals, with everybody. What can we do about assessing vulnerabilities on this barrier, responding to unaccompanied children? And so far there is no answer, no positive answer, but the whole narrative changed. The government of Poland said in May, we have a different setting now. There is no just single man, strong single man. This is the picture of media. Strong single men, Islamic men that are jumping through all these barriers to attack us and to change our space into the Islamic-run country. Our nice, peaceful, Catholic Poland will become God knows what after. So this is the kind of, you say, mainstream, unfortunately, mainstream media prevailing, still prevailing message. But now this has changed and the government finally said, we are noticing that there are different people at the border right now. There are unaccompanied minors, there are pregnant women. This is a new phase of the hybrid war of Putin and Lukashenko. They use a new weapon on us to kill our soft hearts. We need to be tough. This response we didn't quite expect from the new government elected in Poland that was supposedly to be more democratic than the right wing that was ruling Poland for 8 years till last year. So this was for us a big problem, And what we try to do, and what I'm going to switch to now, I will get...
There's just one thing.
Yeah.
There's one thing that, of course, we can talk a lot about the authorities, but also to give you something positive, what I found being there at the border, and to leave you with, is that when I showed up there, I didn't see large NGOs, but I saw local people who are organically, which is very important, creating a self-help network, and a network that effectively does what we all do, finding people who died, delivering the aid. We were not professionals, and we are not professionals. We are people of different backgrounds. We are anarchists. We are moderate conservatives. We are leftists. And somehow, in this situation, in this crisis situation, despite our differences, we were able to create collectively the network that actually works. So this is a very positive message in the way we somehow organically, step by step, can build solidarity in parts where it is needed. So there are also many, many good things that are happening in this horrible situation. And this is one of the most beautiful things also at the same time that I experienced. That I always dreamed of seeing solidarity in the work, not just a Polish slogan, historical stuff and yada, 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 but working with the different people of different backgrounds and creating this. And this is a beautiful thing that it keeps on working. The example is me, Ula, Maria, and how we all got together with Xawery and Kacper. So there are also these things.
Yes, so yes, this is the one thing that this would be a good to get a switch. So we first wanted to express to you how difficult it is, but as you said about solidarity, we are all Polish in the background, and every nation has its good and bad parts. The good part is that when we have the most problems, we start building up solidarities, and we start bringing up the resistance of the solidarity from the down up. And this is the process which we are observing and thankfully being a part of right now. And this is something which we want to face, this difficulty, as a challenge. As a challenge, not as a hopeless case and hopeless scenario, which we think that unfortunately is going to be much more difficult. So first, when we see this concertina, I don't know, who of you have seen the Green Border movie? Okay, if anybody else would want, I would really advise you to see it, then you will really understand much more of the context we are talking about. This is a movie of the Agnieszka Holland, really very good movie director, but also a very positive person who is speaking up loudly through this movie, not only about the situation in Poland, but about the right-wing politics in all Europe, behind all the walls and all the borders that are excluding us from the people in need. And so, anyway, what I want to say is that we realized at one point that there is government that is definitely having a different scenario right now than to really bend down and to help even the most vulnerable people. So we decided, and media that for 8 years in the right-wing government, because last year our government changed to the so-called more positive, which we don't see for migrants, but theoretically it may have a potential to become more positive maybe. And so we had all media in Poland giving the bad information. And we were, of course, on the media a lot, but it was just like a tiny bit of some kind of good information. So then we thought, okay, we need to start something ourselves. We need to speak up ourselves. We cannot go to media. We need to unite and say, today we are going to have a press conference and we are going to speak to media. If anybody wants to hear our position, please come. And this May, we did this for the first time with all groups helping on the border, Border Group, Podlaskie Voluntary Rescue Service, Rescue or Ocalenie Organization, IHI, different of us.
And the Catholic organization.
Catholic organizations, everybody we put together in the room of the Open Society of Soros Foundation, and we said, okay, media, come to us. And the TV stations came, media came, and we presented how we see the border. And now I want to speak about this and about the possibilities of uniting our capacities. Because what we realized also when arriving here, we are so thankful for being invited. Thank you, Lucas. Thank you, everyone. Because what we need is all of you here and much more. Because we are in this fight together. We realize this border that we have on the Polish-Belarus border and all the other borders, they are the borders of the whole Europe. They are not the borders of Poland. It's not the internal issue of Poland with Belarus. It's our common issue, and we need this solidarity to go much further. We need the information to be spread much further. We need statements to be made much further. And now, here I want to switch to our dear friends from Warsaw Art Academy. So, do you want to have 1 second or you want to put later these examples of actions?
Actually, I would really like you to tell something about your work in Warsaw, because it will be easier to connect your work on the border and our collective work in Warsaw.
Okay, so maybe to start with this, I'm going back with the Crossing to Safety project. We did it in the response of the border Belarus crisis. And also one of the part of this was that people who were caught on the border had to be detained somewhere, and there was no enough detention centers in Poland. So there was a huge detention center built in Węgrzyn on the border between Poland and Germany, very close to Berlin actually. So it was much easier to reach the center from Berlin than it was from all other NGOs who were operating on the border or in Warsaw. So we wrote this project, and it started with the idea that we are going to visit this camp of Węgrzyn, which was set in the middle of the NATO military zone. Imagine better place for placing refugees from Afghanistan and Syria in the active military zone. 700 men were placed in barracks. From the morning till night, they could hear the sounds of warfare. This is the kind of context where they were placed. And by miracle, I was actually accepted to go there because I was working before as an expert psychologist to a national prevention torture mechanism, and I reported on torture happening in this camp. I made my report were classified, so I cannot give it to you, but it was done for Ombudsman, the human rights defender of Poland, and from parts of it there came up a report which 150 pages are translated to English as well. It's if you are interested, I can later send to you. This is about the whole detention system in Poland and how violations happen in there. So anyway, in this time, what happened? When we started the project and we finally got the funding, this camp, thankfully, also due to our intervention, was closed because of the inhuman situations there. So we got the funding, but there was no camp near the German border. So we got into Warsaw, recreating the torture center for torture survivors in Warsaw, a small center given to us by the city of Warsaw to be able to have a place where people come after the border or after the detention to get holistic support. And this is where in Jazdów, in the center, we actually got a little house in the center of Warsaw with a beautiful garden around, and it is more called by refugees their home, because they don't come as the office. They don't come there to an office. They come there to reconnect with humans, really. They had so much inhuman treatment, so much coldness and sharpness. They come to people who treat them equally and as humans. And this is where we started this project in Jazdów, and we invited people to participate also from the Warsaw Art Academy, other people who, as volunteers, create with us this space that is for refugees. So.
Yeah, we met on at Jazdów, it's like this headquarters of Maria's foundation. It's actually also where me and my colleague Xawery met, and we met a lot of people who Maria is helping. And initially, we thought about doing some documentary work about both refugees and the activists. But in the process, we started coming there like every Sunday last year in the fall. And in the process, we just stopped believing in like this traditional documentary work. It wasn't really somehow valid for us, and we start to think about something that can more directly include these people, both, of course, the activists, but more importantly, all the refugees, somehow connect them to us, to our work, to the city of Warsaw, try to work with them both artistically and maybe a little bit therapeutically, you know, just doing things with us, not us doing art about them. In February, I believe, we came up with an idea to connect our work to a protest organized by citizens of Republic of Poland, an NGO. And actually, I'm not sure, but I think Maria or Ula suggested we can try to include refugees in the protest, but a lot of refugees are afraid they want to keep their anonymity, especially in the media, because, you know, their status is very different. Some of them may face some kind of backlash. Maybe their families back home may face some kind of backlash. Maybe the process of getting the asylum status and all that may be more problematic when they think they attend such events. And we came up with an idea of using the undersea foil, the rescue foil, you know, the golden foil, and making masks out of it, and it's become somewhat performative, like happening or something like that. We called it an art protest, and we came outside the Prime Minister's office with refugees wearing golden masks. I will show you just that. The clip starts with some footage from Jazdów, from Maria's foundation, where you can see Maria doing some legal work with refugees, because when we met Maria, she's like helping therapeutically, but also with some easy legal, I don't know how to describe it.
Maybe what I can say is like they come so disoriented and they don't discern between the psychological trauma and the different other parts of trauma. They are completely disoriented. They often show us on the phone their story, how they came through the forest. They say, I'm just now out of detention, and yesterday I was placed outside the door. What should I do? And we realized this is like the first moments of actually being in Europe, not with the border guard that you see in dealing with them, but with another unmilitarized, without any, you know, this uniform humans. So I guess I'm a psychologist, and I really feel this is really great to have all the psychological knowledge how to deal with trauma. But first of all, what these humans need is another human. It's not the methodology, but to meet a person that is just simply there for them. And when I studied psychology, I after studied psychotraumatology and crisis intervention, and then the forensic psychology, and I learned that everything is very important, all the methods of documenting torture, trauma, but the first step always is catching a connection and contact. So we are just trying to listen to them, see what is their situation, notice that they come to us in the middle of a winter in shorts, as some of the African colleagues came, and we were just shocked, so we started also action to gather clothes, because we cannot just talk to them, we need to respond to their needs. So this is where this Jazdów, this little house we run as the International Humanitarian Initiative Foundation, which I set up long ago, is a little place where we also try to provide people with food, with clothing, which we don't have money for it, but we have a lot of connections, so people bring and we give.
I just want to add one thing. First of all, sorry for my English; it's not perfect. And thank you for Maria that she bring us here. She's a great saint mother of this little house in the center of Warsaw, and this place is very, very amazing. It was, for me, first time when I was there. It was amazing to meet all of those people and to speak with them and to try to do with them something, because what was important for me, that as an artist there, that I don't want to, because in art we have a long tradition of using people and objectify them for art, and what was important for me that to not make this this thing again, and to make something with them that they will be feeling okay with that project, and they will be willing to participate with us in this project. So, and we wanted to invented something simple that will be easy for them to participate. So this golden NRC foil is very interesting, because it's I think all of you know about this foil and what it can that it's give warm for the people found it in the forest. So it's kind of first thing that it's given to them if some activists find them. So it's some kind of golden initiative for them, I think. It's so they become in this strange place, that limbo place, that they are between being alive or dead. And so it's kind of strange and very full of symbolic thing, this foil. And I found it that if we put this foil on the face, we can see it through this foil. Nobody can see us, our face, but this foil make that we didn't need to put some to cut the hole for eyes, but it's possible to see from this. And we asked people from all those immigrant people what they feel about this, to putting this foil on their faces and go through the streets of Poland and participate in the art protest. And they were very excited about this, and very happy. And first thing, what one of them told me, that they feel safe because first of time they can participate in the protest, because what Kacper said already, that they need to be, most of them need to be anonymous. And what was the main key for us, what was born in front of us, the main idea of this project, that it give them the voice, so they can say something on the streets. They don't need to be scared. they can be still anonymous and they can participate. And we also put this foil on our faces. So what it was make that all of us become some kind of one big some kind of one group, collective, and there was no border between us, white, privileged people who live safely in the Poland, and them who had a very traumatic history.
We want to leave some space for the questions, but we have one little thing we want to say, that's something that we organized as a foil, yes?
Yeah, we found it here on this protest that the mask, golden mask give them the power, give them the voice, and it was amazing for us to see that somehow almost all of them started to say to the television, shouted their stories, they think about what they care about, and that was something for us very amazing to see that the golden masks really work and give them the voice.
And maybe just if anybody wants to comment.
This is just one sentence, but hopefully this is all for finally to have the voices of the refugees and not just us organizing people being on the stages, but I hope this is all leading to the moment when we will be together with the people who feel safe to speak and give testimonies about what they went through, and we are getting there. We are very close. So hopefully next time we meet, we will have more people, and it's not just it will not be just us talking about. And this is, I think, for me and for all of us, our goal is to drop finally the masks, not to be afraid to speak out, and just to be together with them, because this is our main drive, to be together. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. I didn't properly introduce you, so Xawery is doing PhD on the right now in the Warsaw Art Academy on the Department of Public Domain, and Kacper is doing his master's. So this actually work is a part of the PhD and master's, which we do together, and part of the media communication that can be inclusive, that can put up in front the people who are excluded.
Yeah, I think you're actually getting in one of the most important points, and it's also on different levels. We're not speaking, and it's not just we don't speak in general in Poland in a way that respects the human rights. I'm not just talking about the public discussion, but even on the level of the activists, we are so in the mode of being in action, delivering the aid, fulfilling the goal, that we are communicated in a secret way using different communicators, that this is one of the only ways that we're actually communicating, which is not really a communication we can have as a people who are going through traumatic situations day by day. And I can see that it has a huge influence on us, often in a very bad way, that we don't talk face to face after the actions because we just simply don't have time. And so there is a lot of things that we can maybe get from the people like you in this room, suggestions or whatever thoughts you have, how we can, for example, we as an activist can improve this situation, because there's definitely a huge issue on the different levels. I'm just talking about one in terms of the way how we communicate within the groups and also how we communicate outside.
Maybe together we can create some more ideas on that area, because really we don't. Yeah, I work few days a week in Xenion, and that's how I finance everything else, and most of the thing I do voluntary, and most of us are just doing everything voluntarily, and we don't have means, and we don't have funds, And how we are doing it, I don't know. It's a power of solidarity, of announcing we need food. Anybody can have food. Bring us to the Jazdów 7:30. And sometimes people bring it, and sometimes they don't. Now, last week when we are here, we had 50 people being helped in the forest, and the storages on the border are empty. We don't have enough clothes. We don't have enough items. And when people are going to the forest, they go with a very heavy backpacks of everything that a person needs, because when they are soaking wet, they need to be undressed and dressed in the dry clothes, and giving something to drink and giving some soup to eat. Yes, so everything is needed, like whatever human needs, we need it. And if you have any ideas how we can get some more support to pump it from the middle of Europe toward the borders, we would be glad for any suggestions.
Also, you can sleep in the forest as we did for free, unless you get a fine from the forestry service, which we also do get, but we challenge them in court, so it often gets dismissed. So this was a very good question. The thing which is difficult is there are just a handful of us. So we sleep at the border, as you saw. We document the children. Then at the same time, we need to deliver assistance to the people who are in the forest, who cross the border. There are people who are asking us, which is also the recent thing that many people ask for international protection in Poland. So we need to organize the documents, go protect them, call the border guards, be there as a witnesses, so those people would be respected, their applications accepted, and so on. But I would say that we have a lot of footage, we have a lot of documents, but what we lack of is the human resources. And yes, we from time to time have some assistance from the lawyers. We have a great Helsinki Foundation for Human Rights, Helsińska Fundacja Praw Człowieka. We have Stowarzyszenie Interwencja Prawna in Poland, another great organization that helps us. But they also have their limits. So our role also being here is to reach out to all of you if you have any connections, to create a network to support us. And maybe you have some ideas and experiences. We are always willing to talk and to learn also, because we are fully aware that we can learn from each other. So you're very much welcome to help us.
And I just want to add one little part, because in Xenion we are also documenting torture. Yes, this project from the Voluntary Fund of Victims of Torture is documenting torture. It is a great help to have the footage, to have the photography, to have all the proofs. And I used to work as an expert on torture for 8 years in Poland, yes? I know a lot what's going on there, even the classified information. But when we put it in the reports, we use it sometimes for reports to protect people from Dublin. Still, Germany is not able to see that Poland is not a safe country, and in Dublin decision it quotes for 10-year-olds or 15-year-olds data that doesn't have anything to do with this reality, doesn't have anything to do with the detention system. And I would say to you, when I was on my May government meeting, there was a discussion, what do we do about borders? You know what our government is preparing is called Eastern Shield. It's a new border. This is a soft border, because some people cross it. They want to make it even harder. The new idea is to put landmines on the territory of the East European border. This is the nice democracy. This is the way we might be going. Yes? So I think we really need to wake up. We really need to have solidarity, because this is all interconnected. This is not that we are in the isolated territory on the border. I think it's a common politics of the whole European system, and it's also need to negotiate it here in Germany. Don't bring us any more people. We find out that in this year, thousands of people were not even started asylum application for people who crossed this border and landed on Germany. There are cars of German police standing on the border, and what they do pushbacks. They call it readmission. People say, I need international protection. They are put in the cars and they are brought back to the Polish border guards on the other side of the fence, on the other side of the river, or the river. There are thousands of people being right now pushed back from Germany, not even starting asylum procedure to be even in Dublin procedure. So this is the reality. This is all interconnected, and I think the documentation is great. But who cares